Folks, our next session is from Mark Daynes of Beyond. He's talking to us about Spatial Studio and Oracle Analytics. Again, one of the topics that I'm interested in because I like to play in both worlds. And I got to see a little bit of the preview earlier last week, and I'd like to introduce my fellow colleague, Mark Daynes, and take it away, Mark.
Thanks, Wayne. I'm assuming you can see the slides all right.
Yeah, that works. Thank you.
Okay, brilliant. Right, super duper. Such a measured tour de force that came before me there, but let's let's see how this goes. So here I'm looking at Spatial Studio and Oracle Analytics. We're going to start off. We're looking at Spatial Studio, doing some stuff in Spatial Studio, and then passing that off to Oracle Analytics to let it consume that. Who am I? Question I'm often asked. My name is Mark Daynes. I've been working with Oracle for about 30 years. Mainly my interested in stuff is on the kind of the analytics side. So everything from OTBI in Fusion Apps through to Fusion Analytics Warehouse and all that good stuff. Some bits and pieces about me there. My little sort of website and stuff. I work for a company called Beyond Systems. We're based in Manchester in the UK. Predominantly in analytics, a lot of analytics work we do there, everything again from OTBI to Oracle Analytics Cloud, Oracle Analytics Server, business intelligence applications, that sort of side of stuff. But we also build things as well. So we build things using Oracle Apex. Why wouldn't you? That we roll out to people. So we build it on the Oracle Cloud, and we retell some applications. Okay, Spatial Studio. Why Spatial Studio? Well, I think the thing I've noticed about it is that obviously, I think Helly just alluded to this earlier, that back at the end of 2019, Oracle made, I think, the spatial and machine learning, I think an included non-cost option within the databases. And the databases themselves have a lot of spatial capability, but there's a bit of a learning curve there, how to use it. If you've never used it before, Spatial Studio is a lovely GUI front end to that, and what better way to experience spatial things than through a GUI front end? So it's really useful for taking data, and whether that data is map data or it's GeoJSON data, and then being able to layer that and interact with it, and then interact with it in a visual manner. So it's quite a nice little tool for doing that sort of thing here. Then you can get some results of these data analysis that you do, and then you can pass them on to other tools to let them ingest that data and then add other data to it. Currently, I think it's on version 20.1. I think LJ and Carol are going to talk more about the details of what's actually in that 20.1 release after this. I'm going to touch on a couple of little features about it, but that's just kind of in passing, really. Nothing too much. So why Spatial Studio? Well, I mean, we've got customers asking us questions like that are more sort of spatial related, like which customers am I dealing with that are within a certain distance? How much am I spending with local customers? Who am I employing in a local area? And sort of that local needs defining, which can be sort of like a number of miles away from a certain point, whether that be like a building site or a school or something like that. So it's it's really useful for starting to answer those sort of questions. One thing I do particularly like about the way Spatial Studio visualizes things is there's this new sort of temporal capacity. So if your data has a time element to it, you can see things changing over time by using this time slider. So I've just put a small example here to give you just a little taste of that. Of here's some data I've got around the London area, and that's what it looked like and I put it in American format on the 25th, the 11th, 2020. If I move that slider along to the 27th, I can see that data changing in a heat map style. And again, if I move it again to the data I got on the 1st of December, I can see the data changing again. So I can move sliders about and see things interact. I can start to interact with things and see things changing, which I think is quite a pretty cool feature. So that's the Spatial Studio side of it. What about Oracle Analytics? Well, Oracle Analytics especially Oracle Analytics Cloud, is Oracle's premier analytic product. It has the classic interface of the dashboards and the side of it, but also the data visualization side and the kind of the storytelling aspects to it. It's got machine learning baked into it. It has got maps. It can run on premises. It can run in the cloud. It's got 50 connectors. It's quite a big product that does quite a lot of stuff. So it's a kind of a heavy duty analytics tool. It's our analytics tool of choice, and of course it's the front end for Fusion Analytics Warehouse now as well. Now the presentation scenario I'm going to do today is look at a spatial question. So we've got this called Mark's Meals. Perhaps that's me projecting what I actually want to be doing onto this. But we've got a restaurant called Mark's Meals. We're based in London in England, and we've been running a successful restaurant, say. But now we want to identify all of our customers who live within a 3-mile radius of our restaurant and start to market a delivery service to these people. So whilst being like a traditional sitting restaurant, we're looking at all the people who've actually come to our restaurant. And I say everyone within a 3-mile radius, let's start to targetedly market some sort of a delivery service to them. But who are those customers? Because as you can see from the little chart over here, we've got a lot of customers we've got a lot of customers around ourselves. And then what I'm going to do then is once we've identified those customers, I'm going to pass that data off to Oracle Analytics to add some more data to it, augment, and then answer some more questions and see things. Start using the power of Oracle Analytics to give me some more information. Okay, well, let's go at this data, and it's quite simple, deliberately, so because it's a quite straightforward thing, but also it's going to show a couple of nice features. So the first table I've called it AAD TechCast 2021, just so it's, we know where we are. And it's a simple, these are my customers. There's nothing more about the customer than I've got a customer name that I've put in. I've denormalized the amount of money that they've spent with us over the time that they've been a customer of ours. And I've got their postcodes. I haven't got a country in there, but we're going to come to that in a minute. And I've just got an ID column, and the ID is just a unique ID. I've not got a primary key on it. I've just created a unique ID. And these are 100 customers I've got. I think there's hundreds of customers. I think there's 300 customers I've got for my restaurant. And they're all this data is living in an autonomous warehouse. As well as that, I've got another table, which is our shop, our restaurant. That's got one record in it, and that's just the name of our restaurant, Mark's Meals, and there's a postcode for that place. Yeah, 300 customers, all the details about the customers, one restaurant, details about the restaurant. Okay, these are our data sets that are living in an autonomous warehouse. Doesn't need to live in an autonomous warehouse. It can be anywhere, but it's I'm just using the autonomous for the time being. So let's start off by signing into Spatial Studio. Spatial Studio, you can run it locally, so you can run it like a Windows port and just have it locally on your machine, or you can run it as with EJB into have it running on a compute node. So it doesn't have to be just like, think of it as like DV desktop or something like that. It can run so other people, multiple people can log into it. So here I'm going to simply enter some details into it. Now, what that gives me, and this is, I think, a nice new touch, is that once I log into it, it kind of gives me a little roadmap of what I might want to do. So it says, you might want to go and create a connection to somewhere, because that's where your data is going to be. Then you can go and create a data set within Spatial Studio, and then go and create a project, so I can just go and do something with that data set. So we can kind of follow these tram lines and do that. So let me start off by creating, before I create a connection, actually, there's a nice little thing on brand management. So you can brand it yourself as well. I'm not really going to dwell on that. I just put a little logo on there, so it pops in the top corner there. But you can get this nice little facility to sort of brand it. So I'm going to go and create a connection to start with, so we can go and start looking at our data. Now, I'm not going to go into the detail of creating a connection, because we're not here to really start dragging wallet files and stuff like that about. So here's some connections I kind of created earlier, and it's no different than me just creating the data connection to a database. That's all it is. I'm going to use the connection I'm going to use where my data is stored is this 19C. I've got a 21 there, but I've got a 19C Oracle Data Warehouse, and I'm going to pull the data. I've got my data; those tables we saw earlier are stored in this database. So we're just going to pull the data out of that. So let's go and create the data set. So click on create data set, connect to my autonomous, my 19C warehouse. And if you remember the table we had, I'll just do it like that actually. Remember the table, simple table, customers, addresses. Lovely. What that then gives me when I click on that 19Cs, I get like a big list of all the things, so I can go and click the this table here that I'm interested in, and I can go and load it into Spatial Studio. Now, when I do that, I don't have to have the same name as the table. I can go and give the data set a name, and I've decided to call it restaurant customer. Yeah, so I'm going to go and load in my restaurant customers into Spatial Studio. When I do that, it pops up a nice little thing here saying I've loaded it, but also the scary looking warning triangle, just alerting me to the fact that there's some things that need attention. Now, what the product does here, when it's loaded it up, it actually helps me by telling me what these things are. And the two things are: one, it needs a key column, and it says a no key column found. Now, that's because I did camera key in it. Now, I know it's unique, that column, so I should be all right with that. And secondly, I have no geo data in there at all. I've got a column that says postcode, but I've got nothing I can actually use in a spatial manner. Yeah, there's no lats and longs. So Spatial Studio is going to say, we need to let's sort these things out really, and then we can start to use them in the project. So it kind of guides him to that. So let's just start by clicking on the one here. It says no key column. Let's go and address that first. Pops up a nice little thing. We can see the columns that we had before: the customer, the ID, the postcode, the sales. And actually, another quite thing that's nice about it is it does a bit of a profiling of that data. So I can see the sales values are from my 300 customers. My customer numbers go from 1 to 300. Is that one person spent £3, perhaps bought a bag of chips or something, and one person spent £631, which is quite nice. So I might be more interested in the person who spent an awful lot of money, and then perhaps be able to do some analysis on that in Oracle Analytics, just to see if they're spending more money recently, or have they dropped off, or what's going on with that? Was it all on one meal, or are they spending £3 100 times? Anyway, it says I can go and say just use that. You can click on the validate key button, and then it validates the key. So it's quite happy that ID is fine. Yeah. So what I can do here is I can see the only issue I actually have now is that I need to geocode the addresses. So I'll just click on that, and then that guides me through to geocode the addresses. And this is the second and final thing I really need to do. It's given me a great, lovely little template here. It's analysed all the data, and it's actually suggested here that this thing here, so it's already done some work for me. I'm happy with that, and if it didn't say that, I can drop these things down. So I might, for example, have a county or a street name or a country, and I'll be able to select them from this list here. But I've got this postal zip code, which is fine for me. And also, you notice I didn't put United Kingdom in that data set. But what Spatial Studio is saying there to me is, well, actually, if all your data is in a certain country, just let me know about that, and I'll sort it out for you. So there's all my postcodes, all in the United Kingdom. Press the button, it geocodes it. So it uses the location geocoder. And then I get this lovely sign here, which I think is the worldwide symbol for you've got some geocoded data here. So this is our data set. It shows where the connection is, where we took it from, and it's now valid. So I can now click on the properties of it and have a look at it. What's kind of interesting here, if I just look at the properties of that data set, geolocated, is it shows me a GeoJSON endpoint as well. So I can have a look at that data there in JSON format. Should I need to? So I've done the first two things. We've got else. We've loaded up a data set. We geocoded it. We can now go and create a project. So I can just go and create a project either by clicking here on the data set itself, click on the data set and go create me a project, or I can do it from the front screen. When I go and create the project, it gives me a default the West Coast of the USA, because it doesn't yet know what data is. And I've got this data set here. So I started with my one single data set of all my customers. And what I'm going to do is do no more than drag that. And when I do that, hurrah, all the data points that it's geocoded are all shown. Now, they're all the same color, they're all the same size, but we're going to go and have a look at that in a minute. Yeah, so it's kind of okay. Put all the points the same color and the same size. What I can go and then do is start around and have a look at this. I can start going changing some settings and making this a bit more interesting for me. So what I've done is click on that, look at the settings, and you can see that it's rendered it by default as a circle, a little red circle single value size of 5, so it's made it five points wide. What I can, and that's on the style. What I can go and do is go and put a filter on that. So you can see I've got things I can do with it, actually. I've got a style, a filter, interaction, and legend. Style, I'm going to leave it at that point. And I'm going to go and click on the filter because we can actually interact with it. So I can actually say, let's have a look at the sales field, the measure that's on there, and then say, show me all the values here where that data point is greater than 420, and all my higher spending people. And that's done that for me. So I can visually now I'm starting to actually interact with the data. So visually, I can now go and see my higher spending customers and actually where they are. I can press the clear button just to clear that off. So it's not like it's a permanent thing. And I might look at different sort of samples of the data. There's also, we've got style, we've got filter, we've got interaction. So here I've clicked all the columns that I had in my data set. So they're all going to appear as a tooltip. So they aren't just floating little dots that I can't see any data about now. If I go and click on those little dots, now I've put these on. When I move over them, the info window pops up and shows me some data about it. I probably put too much stuff on there. I probably don't need the ID on it, but it's useful to see the postcode and the sales of that person. So I've got that sort of level of interactivity with it. But that's us doing something. So I'm saying visually, let the data do the talking by us changing the look and feel of the way it's been represented, by changing some of the styles on it. So if I leave it as a circle, but I make it, rather than based on a single value, I make it based on data, I can make these data points based on any measure I've got. The key measure I've got in here is the amount of sales. So I might like to see, you're going to have a guess, people who spent the most having the bigger circle, so they stand out more to me. I could probably change the color of that or do something with the opacity. But if I go and just do this for the time being, it's looked at the data and said, well, you got a minimum value of 3, the maximum value is 631. So it's worked that out for me. So I know my range of values there. And I said, well, let's go and create 4 bin values. Go and create 4 values. Go and create 4 distinct values for me in sizes. So I've got the smaller ones are going to be 1. So I've got, if it's basically up to 160, 317 or over 4, I've got 4 different bin sizes, and they're shown here. So I can start looking at, and actually I'm looking at thinking, I might go and change those bins to be a different value. I might make 6 bins there. Now I've looked at the data, but I just keep playing with this until I get the view of it I like. Now that's looking at it as a circle, but there's other render styles that might look a bit busy to me. I might want to say, well, actually, can we group them and do them in a bit more of a cluster factor? Oh, absolutely, we can do. Let's go and cluster it. So I'm going to change the color and just go and change that to a cluster. And with the cluster itself, I've got some opacity again and a color. And as I zoom into that, I can clusters. So they're quite high clusters. If I zoomed in on the map, the clusters move out a bit. But I can sort of see now the distribution of people around my area. And the clustering works really well for that. If I toggle that to a heat map, and I've got a lot of control here of the weight and intensity and the radius of the heat maps, I can see it as a heat map. I can start seeing this as just a different style. And I think you're going to see that different styles of visualization are better for different sorts of data. If I'm looking like population density, perhaps, or perhaps even what Helly was showing earlier, perhaps when she was looking at when they were looking at all the sort of the COVID exposures, I think it works quite well for that. So they're the sort of the different sort of styles I've got. And I can actually do some other bits of analysis. You'll spot that little ruler on there. I can actually start mapping between data points in here. So I can take the ruler and draw a line here. So I've got a line between 2 data points just by drawing it on the map there. So I can see that's 13 kilometers between there and there. So it's quite nice to be able to do that sort of activity with it as well. So that's just us looking at the data set that we brought in. We haven't really done any processing with it. We just had a bit of a play with it. So I'm going to do the same. If I do the same thing with the restaurant, start with the customers, 300 customers, I've loaded them all in, we'll look them on a map. Let's get our restaurant in. It's the same process as it was for looking at the customers. So I'm not going to go through that process again of loading that data in. I'm just going to show you here, we're going to go and get that that one thing, load it in, and we're going to just go and geocode it exactly the way we did with the customers. We go and geocode it the same way. We get this, and we just get a new data set called restaurants. But behind the scenes of that, just so we're all aware of actually what's gone on there. Before we did the geocoding, that table looked like that. Once we've geocoded it, we've got a new GC geometry type column that's been added to the table. So Spatial Studio has done that, and it's added this geometry column for us. So this is the thing that's allowed it to do this is where the lat and long is. This is where the lat and long is stored in there. So you can see what it's done. So I can go back to the database and have a look at that column that it's added on. If I look a bit deeper at that column, rather than just saying, oh, it's a geometry column, and I look inside it, and I'm using SQL Developer here to look inside that column. It's done it as I've got here, set it up as a 2001, which is a 2D point. So it's geocode that as a 2D point. That 4326 is the pointer to say basically that's metadata for it's a lat long, and it's got the lat and long fields in it. So it's the tool itself has done the coding for me. If I go back to our little project here, we've got our customers in. I can now click on here and add another data set, which is our restaurant. So I'm going to bring the data, bring the restaurant into it. So I've now got restaurants here on this left-hand side. And you can guess right. Yes, I am going to just simply drag and drop that into here. I've dragged and dropped my restaurant to the map, and dramatic pause. I've got it popping up as a little knife and fork. Now, what I've done there is, when I drag that data point on, it's dragged it on as a little red dot. But I've just used the style functionality. Remember, we had style, filter, interaction, and legend. So the style, I flipped the icon to a restaurant and made it 15, just so that really does stand out. So again, I got a visual cue of where my restaurant is and what that really is. So now I can see the restaurant in relation to the customers. So I've now got two layers. I've got the restaurant, and I've Mark's restaurant. I've also got the customers. So now I've got two layers. I can actually start to do some analytics and mapping between those layers. So I can create an analysis of these two layers. And this is where I'm going to start doing some spatial analysis without writing any code. So what I can do, what I do is when I create that, I said before, the tool itself was like a GUI that gave us a load of an interface to a lot of the spatial analytics. So here, it's got all these filter options. So I can return shapes that overlap another, or shapes that cover another. So I might have a bridge. So imagine I might have my shape files might be a bridge going over a river or something like that. I've got all of these things here. Things interact and boundary with things. I've got these different combination options here. And we can, put rubber bands around items, and we're actually going to do that in a minute. Put rubber band around all my things, so my customers, so I can see them more clearly as to where they are. I've got these transformation options to, look at a point at polygon, or add a buffer around things. I've got measures, look at things in distance relation to each other's, or calculate the maximum distance between two shapes. So you can see there's a smorgasbord of different sort of analytic options here. There's some new ones in 20.1, but I'll let other people talk about those. But if I come back here to the first one we had with a filter, and I click on return shapes in a specific distance, or specified distance of another, this is a bit where I'm going to go and do that between my customers and my restaurant. So I'm interested in the customers that are within 3 miles of my restaurant. When I click on that, all it does, I've got to give it a name I've got to give this analysis a name. So I'm going to say, I want to call it the lucky delivery radius. So the result of this analysis, the customers were in a 3-mile radius of a restaurant. I'm going to call this the lucky delivery radius, because as far as I'm concerned, they're lucky customers because they get the option of having a delivery from my restaurant. And it simply asks for two things, really. The layer to be filtered, and what I'm going to filter it by. Well, the layer I'm going to filter is the customers. The layer I'm going to filter it by is the restaurant, because I want to see the customers near the restaurant. So it says, well, put some values in the fields then, Mark. Well, okay, this is going to be 3. The use going to be mile, but you can see I've got another load of options there. I've got kilometers and meters and other things. There's a huge list of things I can put on there. So if I run that analysis, it's going to create me an output field. It's going to create me an output, which is the lucky delivery radius, which is the customers within that radius. So here it is here. just by running that, I've got this lucky delivery radius. And that should be all the customers within that radius. And you guessed it, I'm going to drag and drop that onto the map and see what happens. As soon as I do that, there they are. I can see my restaurant. I can see all the people around it, all the customers I've got. And these ones have appeared as the red dot. So as I say, by default, it comes red dot. And I can see these are all the customers within a 3-mile radius of my restaurant without me having to do anything. You now see I've got 3 of these things down here. I've got 3 layers. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use another thing, which is a combination filter. Now, one of the combination things to put a rubber band around those customers, so I can sort of see them there, but it's looking a bit busy. So I'm going to put a rubber band around them, so I can see them banded. So it says, right, okay, down to do that. How to do that? Pretty easy. I click on the rubber band thing, and I say all I want to do is going to call it a 3-mile band, and pick out this my restaurant. So I'm going to pick out the lucky delivery radius. So basically, put a band. I'm going to call it 3-mile band of the customers that are within the 3-mile radius, and put a band around those so I can see it. I do that, and you can see here I've got this 3-mile band, and there it is. It's put a band around it, so I can now see that band going all the way around, so I can see the customers. What I've got here, though, I've got 4 layers on the map, and what I can do here is I can start to move these layers around, so I can bring them to the fore, so I can bring these up a bit. So if I move that lucky delivery radius people, the 50 I've got as lucky delivery people, I move them up, then that's going to become more prominent on the map. So I can now see those at the front. So it's quite obvious. Now I've got little eyes here, and I can start turning these layers off. So I've got 4 layers on this map now. So I've kind of done my analysis. I can start turning layers off to make things, because I'm not really interested in these ones here that aren't within the lucky delivery radius. So I can start to click on these little things, click on the eyes and turn the eyes off. So I'm going to take off the band off it, take all the customers off, and just leave the people who are in the radius and the restaurant. So I can clearly now see the answer to my question. Show me all the people in the 3-mile radius, and that is these people here, right? And that is all held in this lucky delivery radius analytic. So because I've got this analytic lucky delivery radius that it created with all my people in it, I can look at the properties of that, and there's the code. It's written the code for me. So if I wanted a template of the code to go and write myself or go and use, it is here. So that's written the code for me, I can see 3-mile radius. So I might not have known how to do that, but now I do, and I can go and use that code here. It's telling me there's 55 records in it, which is pretty nice. And if I go and run that, I can just go and run that as a piece of code in my autonomous warehouse, and hey ho, there's all the records. So I know already how to write a bit of code to give me all the people. And if I wanted people in 5-mile radius, I just go and change that. I wanted that many kilometers, I just go and change that. I didn't know how to do that before I did this. It's done it for me, but it's now giving me a great idea for a template to ask it a load of questions. That was me writing the code by stealing it out of this SQL that it showed me, but it's actually created a source object in the background called SG Tech View. But to make it a bit more friendly, actually done is it allows me to, in the settings tab, go and create a synonym. So if I could go and put a synonym in the settings tab of this analysis, and what that's going to go and do is create a synonym in the database. So I just do that and press apply. That's going to create a synonym called AAD Lucky Delivery Radius V, because that's what I decided to call it, which means, you've guessed it, I can go and write a bit of code that says select star from that synonym, and I get all that data. So it's kind of encapsulated that in a lovely synonym for me as well. If I want to start expanding that out a bit and do something a bit more exciting myself, rather than just looking at a GC geometry column, I can go and get the manual out, and I can go and learn a bit about stuff, and I can go and start to look inside that geometry column. And here I've got the X and the Y axis out, so using there to get the vertices. I've got the vertices out of that column, so I can go and have a look at that. And if I wanted to, I could use that bit of code here as the source for Oracle Analytics. So Oracle Analytics, as I say, can consume it. It could consume that bit of code directly out of the autonomous warehouse. Now I don't have to keep saying, well, it just happened to be an autonomous warehouse. It could be in an Oracle database, but we don't have to do it like that. We can also export the data as well if we wanted to. And I'm just going to show how to do that. So I can go on just take this here and press the export button, and that'll export that as a CSV. So I can take that data out as a CSV. So if I take the data out as a CSV, I can now load that in about a couple of minutes. Here we go. What we've done here, we're going to load that into Oracle Analytics. So what I've actually done here, we brought the data into Spatial Studio, we geocoded it, we put it on a map, we did the same in the restaurant, we ran some analytics on it, we did all of that in the autonomous warehouse, and then we looked at some other capabilities. But now we've got those customers. What I'm going to do now, and this is, I'm conscious of the time, so I'm going to bring this into Oracle Analytics to start looking at that data. So I'm just going to bring the data into Oracle and visualize it. Then also bring in some detailed transactions and put them on as well, just showing how we can start to augment the data really. Go to Oracle Analytics, click on the data set. Now remember, I said I could have brought that data in straight from the warehouse if I wanted to. I've chosen this time to bring it in from the spreadsheet. So I create this little spreadsheet called Lucky Delivery Radius. Brought it in here. You recognise these columns here. As I say, I could have done that as a query from the warehouse. But brought these in, and no more than just then take the sales and customer data, drag that across into Oracle Analytics, and I've got a different visualization of all the sales by all my customers. I can make that a bit more understandable to me by doing an ordering of it. So these are the 50 customers. The guy with these are all my customers in that Lucky Delivery Radius. And I can see now my sales from low to high. The person spent like £3. The guy who spent like 600. What I can do is put a map in from Oracle Analytics. I can just drag the map onto there, and because I've geocoded the data, they've got the lat longs. It shows me all the data. It shows me all the customers and where they actually are. So this is because Spatial Studio has geocoded it for me. I can now use that data and look at it on the map in a different product entirely. But of course, the joy of it being Oracle Analytics and these two things being joined, everything's being joined together. If I brush things, so I click on that, it highlights that, yeah, which is quite nice. Now I might want to do just a few visual cues on that. If I go and change the color of that to black so it stands out, it stands out. I can go and do the same for the data point on the map, make that stand out just by putting the data points in. And then I can go and change the shape of that data point on the map so it's a big cross. So it does stand out. I can now, if I'm going to go and present this to say, if I'm presenting this to my board of people, saying, look, here's the people we're going to go and market to, and here's some information about them. I can have it like this as a nice visual cue going, here's the customers we're going to market to. Guy here, customer 21, that's where he is, X marks the spot. Perhaps when we're going to do the marketing, we give him a special bonus or a special prize maybe for being the person who has actually spent the most with us in the time he's been with us. I can drag the sales value then up to the top to create a filter on it and start filtering that data to say, well, actually just show me the top 10 customers. So I brought in the 50 customers that were around my restaurant, but I'm not going to start asking some more analytical questions of, well, show me the top 10 spenders of those people and where are they? Well, here they are, and these are the customers. I can do top 10, I can do top 15, or I can start create an expression filter as well, and then bring in expression filters in to say, well, actually, of the top 15, show me all the ones where the sales is more than a certain amount of money as well, and start combining filters. But really what I wanted to show you in the last couple of minutes is, if I start data sets in, like more detailed transactions that the customers have done, because we had a consolidated transaction, so we know how much a customer had spent, we didn't know when they'd spent with us. I can start adding extra data sets now, and I'm adding a data set here. So the data set we brought in from Spatial, I brought it in as a spreadsheet, but here I'm going to add another data set that's come from an autonomous database. I can start bringing that in, joining that data in, joining it in on a key, which is an ID, and then I can start to show more information about the customer. So the kind of the data's come from Spatial, who had a good analysis of it, and then we brought it into here, and I can start then just to play with the data. And then if we start actually doing deliveries and putting delivery drivers in, we can start looking at the performance of the delivery driver. This is probably less important, but I was just sort of using the explain functionality to show the sort of the performance of the delivery drivers, so that we can then start getting a completely different picture of, if you have the performance of delivery drivers, we can then start rating the delivery drivers by 1-star, 2-star, 3-star, and then start to see where the 1-star, 2-star, 3-star delivery drivers are. So we kind of came a long way from getting the data that we needed to get the data to play with it in Oracle Analytics to get these extra insights and mash it up with other data from different data sources. But what I really needed to do was get that core of data in the first place. So answer that question of, who are these customers? I need to find out who these customers are. Who are these customers are within my radius? So Spatial Studio was able to get me that data, geocode it for me, lets me bring that into Oracle Analytics, and lets me mash it up then with data from other different sources to start to let me ask more complicated questions of that data. So kind of in summary, really, I think that's what Spatial Studio is excellent for, is manipulating and creating a subset of data that will be more challenging for me to do otherwise. But also kind of gives me the code as well, doesn't it? That show me how it actually did that, and how it gives me some great templates to work with. Analytics, of course, kind of can take that data forward, consolidate that data, bring in data from other places. And here I just put some little links of blogs that I found. So there's a great Ask Tom session that was done on 2020.1 of Spatial Studio. There's some great blogs at that site there, and some good analytics blogs on this site here. Pretty much that is me. I hope you found it interesting. That's pretty much that as a wrap, I think.
Excellent. Thank you, Mark. Most of the questions that have been asked have been answered by our panelists. So right now there's no open questions for you. And for those of you, this is a good chance to take your 5-minute break